The gray man found me on Pawleys Island. I saw him before the storm, and he wasn't alone. I didn't believe in ghosts, especially not the ones you hear about in local tourist brochures. But everyone in South Carolina talks about the gray man at Pawleys Island. According to the legend, he's a mysterious figure dressed in gray who appears on the beach before massive storms or hurricanes. The locals claim he warns people to leave, and anyone who sees him is spared from disaster. It sounded like a quaint coastal story, so when I booked a beach house on Pawleys Island for a late summer break, I didn't give it much thought. The first night was beautiful, calm waves, warm air, and the soothing sound of the ocean. Around 11 p.m., I decided to take a walk on the beach. It was nearly empty, just me and a few fishing boats in the distance. Halfway down the shore, I saw him, a man standing where the sand met the waves. He was dressed in gray pants and a long, old-fashioned coat, even though it was humid. His face was pale, almost featureless in the moonlight, and he didn't move as I approached. "Evening," I called, trying to be polite. No response. I stopped about 15 feet away. "Are you okay?" That's when he turned his head. Not quickly, slowly, like it took effort. I swear his eyes were just empty. A whisper carried on the wind, though his mouth didn't move. "Leave. The storm is coming." Before I could reply, a wave crashed between us, and when the water receded, he was gone. The next morning, I woke to a strange tension in the air. The sky had turned gray, and the ocean seemed restless. My phone buzzed with a weather alert. A tropical storm had formed offshore. I laughed nervously. Coincidence? I told myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about that figure on the beach. That evening, as I was locking up the beach house, I glanced out the window and froze. There he was, standing on the dunes facing the water. His coat flapped slightly in the wind, but he didn't move. "Hey!" I shouted from the porch. "What do you want?" The figure turned slightly, tilting his head. "Leave, before it takes you." The voice wasn't loud, but I heard it as if he were standing next to me. I grabbed my phone and started recording. But when I looked through the screen, the man wasn't there. The camera showed nothing but sand and grass. I blinked, lowered the phone, and he was gone again. Later that night, the storm alerts got worse. Now they were calling it a Category 2 hurricane. The locals in the diner the next morning were already talking about evacuating. When I mentioned seeing a man in gray, the waitress stopped dead. "You saw him? You saw the gray man?" I nodded slowly. She leaned in close. "If you saw him, you need to leave. People who ignore him don't make it out." I didn't leave. Not yet. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the third night changed everything. The storm had intensified. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling the windows. Around midnight, the power went out, leaving the beach house in total darkness. That's when I heard footsteps. Not outside, inside. Slow, deliberate steps moving across the wooden floor downstairs. "Hello," I called, heart pounding. No answer. The footsteps stopped. I grabbed a flashlight and crept down the stairs. The front door was still locked. The living room was empty. But as I turned toward the kitchen, I froze. Standing at the sliding glass door was the gray man. His hand was pressed against the glass, but his fingers were wrong. Too long, too thin. His head tilted at an unnatural angle, and his mouth opened slowly, too wide. "Leave, or you'll join us." His voice was like the wind howling through broken windows. I dropped the flashlight, and the beam flickered across the room. When I picked it up again, the glass door was empty. No footprints. Nothing. I ran back upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and didn't sleep a second that night. The next day, I drove into town, desperate for answers. I found an elderly man named Mr. Hawkins sitting on the porch of a bait shop. When I told him what I'd seen, he nodded slowly. "You're not the first," he said. According to him, the legend of the gray man goes back to 1822, when a young man drowned while riding to see his fiancée on Pawleys Island. His spirit supposedly walks the shoreline before storms, warning people to leave. But Hawkins lowered his voice and added something I hadn't heard before. "They say he's not alone anymore. Some folks who don't listen, their souls get taken. They walk with him now. Shadows in the storm." I felt sick. When I returned to the beach house, I found something that made my blood run cold. On the front porch, written in wet sand as if with invisible fingers, were the words, "Last chance." I packed my bags that evening, but the roads out of the island were already starting to flood. I told myself I'd leave first thing in the morning. That night, I saw him again, closer than ever. The hurricane hit just after midnight. The wind was so strong the walls shook. Rain pounded against the windows like stones. I huddled in the hallway with a flashlight, praying the house wouldn't collapse. Then I heard it. A knock. 3 knocks at the front door. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed the flashlight and peered through the peephole. The gray man stood on the porch, soaked but perfectly still. Behind him, in the flashes of lightning, I saw others. Shadows. Dozens of gray shapes, just standing in the storm. Their faces blurred, their eyes hollow. The gray man raised his hand slowly and pointed at me. Too late. The door rattled violently, as if someone, or something, was pounding on it from the outside. The wind roared through the house, even though every window was locked. I screamed, ran upstairs, and hid in the bathtub. The storm lasted hours. When it finally calmed, I stepped outside. The porch was covered in footprints, bare, human-like, but distorted. I left Pawleys Island that morning.